Okay, going to explain how to work out 3B of the metals extraction exercise that you were issued, which is a calculation based on a balanced equation. So here we've got 3B, and 3B says that platinum ores also contain copper sulfide. When the ores are heated, the copper sulfide reacts to form sulfur dioxide gas. And then you've been given an equation. It says calculate the mass of sulfur dioxide produced when 96 grams of copper sulfide is heated. Now, this is a typical calculation based on a balanced equation. The key to calculations based on balanced equations is you know something about one side of the reaction and you have to work out something else. In this situation, what we've got is, and I always do this, I always rewrite the equation that I'm dealing with again, right? So I've got 2 copper sulfides and 3 oxygens changes into 2 copper oxides and 2 sulfur dioxides. Now, it says in the question that you have to calculate the mass of sulfur dioxide produced. So this is what we want to know the mass of. I always like to do that. Produced when 96 grams of copper sulfide is heated. Well, we identify what copper sulfide is, that's it there. So we've got 96 grams of that. And we want to know, if we've got that amount of that, how much of that we're going to make. Now, you cannot just assume that grams changes into grams directly. You can't work it out that way. But what you can do is you can find out how many moles of this you have, and then you can work out how many moles of this you're going to make. Why? Because chemical reactions always react in a ratio. This ratio, this molar ratio, which I'm going to write below here, is 2 moles of copper sulfide reacts with 3 moles of oxygen to make 2 moles of copper oxide and 2 moles of sulfur dioxide. As we're not interested and have no values for oxygen, I can get rid of that. I'm not interested in it. And because I've not got any information in that, I don't need that either. So really what we've got is we've got a relationship where we can take 2 moles of copper sulfide and it would make 2 moles of sulfur dioxide, right? Which is a ratio of 1 mole to 1 mole, right? Now, the thing is, do we actually have 1 mole? If we had 1 mole of this, then that would give us 1 mole of that. So the key to calculations based on balanced equations is, well, you need to find out how many moles is 96 grams. And then once you know how many moles you've got, you would then be able to work out how many grams, you would then, if you knew how many moles of this you have, you know how many moles of that you have, you can then convert that into grams. So if 96 grams was 2 moles, we would have 2 moles of sulfur dioxide. Okay, right, so let's answer this question. Let's work through how you would answer it. So, to answer calculations based on balanced equations, the easiest way to do it, in my opinion, is you write down the equation. You then jot down the information that you have. So we've got copper sulfide, it says, is 96 grams. And we want to work out the mass of sulfur dioxide. So we ask ourselves the very important question, well, if we've got 96 grams of copper sulfide, how many moles is that? Well, we can work out how many moles copper sulfide is by using our triangle. Number of moles equals mass over gram formula mass. So let's work out the gram formula mass. The gram formula mass is done this way, and you use your data booklet to work out, to find what's the mass of sulfur. So there's sulfur. Sulfur's got a mass of 32. So there is 1 of them, so it's 1 times 32. And then copper is 1 times, and if you look it up in your data booklet, 1 times, the data booklet says it's 63.5. So it's 1 times 63.5. So that's nice and easy. Add them two together is 95.5. Now, 95.5 grams is near enough 96 grams. So without doing the equation, you could probably see that the number of moles is going to be, if I was to round that up, 1 mole. But anyway, let's just go through this anyway and do it properly, because the numbers don't exactly get to 1 mole, so we'll make it more accurate. So we look at our triangle, the triangle I mentioned earlier, which is number of moles, number, which is n, is equal to mass over gram formula mass, right? So number of moles is equal to mass over gram formula mass. Because remember, we've got 96 grams, we want to know how many moles is that. So the mass, well, that's the mass in the question, so it's your 96, divided by your 95.5, which is going to be equal to 1 point something. Let's figure it out. 96 divided by 95, just type it in a calculator here, 95.5 is 1.005. Now you should never round until the very end, okay? So there is actual numbers after. It goes 2356021. I'm just going to save that in my calculator. I'm not going to write it down here for simplicity's sake. Now, as mentioned earlier, the ratio here is 2 moles of copper sulfide changes into 2 moles of sulfur dioxide, which is a ratio of 1 mole to 1 mole. It's the same thing. So if we've got 1.005 and all those other numbers, it would make 1.005 here. We need to work out, well, we now know the number of moles, what's the mass of that? So again, we're going to use this same triangle, but this time mass is going to be the subject, because mass is what we're trying to find out. So mass is equal to number of moles times gram formula mass. Again, you work out what the gram formula mass is. You can always work out what the gram formula mass is. So that's going to be 2 times 16, it's 32. And sulfur is 32. So that's going to be 32. So you add them up together and you get 64. So 1 mole will equal, don't know why I did it over here, 64 grams. Therefore, if we make the mass the subject of the equation, so mass equal to number of moles times gram formula mass, that's going to be, the number of moles we have is 1.005 times your gram formula mass, which is 64. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my long number in my calculator, so it was 1.00523566021, and I'm just going to multiply that by 64, and that makes my answer the most accurate answer I can get, which is going to be 64.335. So I'm going to make it 64.34. Now if you look, the numbers used here are integer numbers, okay? So there's no decimal place, so therefore your answer really should be the exact same. So this we would round down, so our answer, I've run out of space, let's move this down. Our answer is actually just going to be 64. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to supply you with a couple of questions for you to do and let you have a practice at this, just to gain some confidence, okay? If you got it right in the exercise, fantastic. And if you haven't, hopefully this has helped explain it. If you need any other help, just let me know at one of the support sessions that I've organised for you during the week. Okay.